spend most of my time talking about is the Willy Wonka golden ticket. How do you get the MSA with Chesapeake, everyone says. And it's not an easy answer, and the unfortunate thing for me is I'm probably going to get a lot of emails after this, but that's okay. I counted yesterday, I got 148 yesterday, and just under 100 of them were specific to how do I get an MSA, what do I got to do? So let me start by saying, who needs to have an MSA to work with Chesapeake? If you anticipate having a direct working relationship with Chesapeake, specifically if you work in a safety-sensitive area, if your feet are going to be working on Chesapeake-operated soil, you're probably going to need an MSA to do work with us. This talks a little bit about operations, drilling. More and more that's becoming, if you do business directly with, and again, I can only speak for Chesapeake, I can't speak for the industry as a whole, but I think it's pretty similar, that if you're going to be doing work for us on a pretty regular basis, you're going to have to qualify for an MSA, a Master Service Agreement. And to talk about, let's see if I can use another analogy. A fencing company, I think I told this story the other day, because we specifically were looking for a fencing company. If anyone's in the fencing industry, see me after the meeting. But the reality is, this conversation happens a lot. You could be the best fencing company in the state of Ohio. And we are looking specifically, well, say you're the best fencing company right here in Canton, Ohio. And for whatever reason, our paths haven't crossed at first. You didn't know we were here, we didn't know you existed. For whatever reason, the first 2 or 3 contractors we started doing business with were, one was from Youngstown, I think one was from down south somewhere, but whatever the reason. There needs to be an operational need for us. If we engaged every vendor that contacts us for an MSA, it's one, it's not economically feasible, and 2, we just can't manage that many vendors. So this stepping order kind of talks about the process. And the first one needs to be, there has to be an operational need to engage another vendor for that service. In the fencing example, our current operations, those 3 contractors that are doing work for us, we have an obligation to them also. We have some loyalty to them. If they're performing at a safe level, they're able to keep up with our timelines, they're price conscious, they're partnering with us, we have an obligation to keep them busy. We don't want to just keep adding more and more and we kind of liquid, because they're making investments. I was at a company called Sunpro, just some environmental work, just yesterday, and he was talking about the millions of dollars they're investing in new equipment, in new trucks, really in reaction to some of the volume of work that they're doing with us. It wouldn't be right to just start engaging many more people, and his investment now isn't going to be able to be recouped. So what will happen though, and we are early in our stage, as our operations advance, we're going to need another fencing contractor. And now that I know who this one was, and boy, I feel terrible because I haven't known who he was until now, but I do know who he is now. He's given me his information. Somebody in our field operations has to find out that that person exists, and that field representative has to initiate, in essence, sponsor you for an MSA. So that fencing contractor sent me his information. I understand a little bit about his business, and I disseminate that to our organization, to the people, the field staff, that do these fencing contractors, people that construct our sites probably. And I make sure I put that in front of that person, so when they need a new one, then that field representative will engage the fencing contractor, ask him some questions, and he still has some qualifications, but he'll have then the chance to get a master service agreement. That field representative has to have the approval from a district manager. If I'm a field representative and I say I want to do business with XYZ fencing contractor, that approval kind of goes to my superiors, my district manager. First thing he's going to ask me is, what's the operational need? And if I just tell him really there isn't one, but he's the best guy in Canton, that might be, but look, it's not fair to the other 3. So the operational need typically is going to be, listen, we're going to be ramping up from 8 or 9 drilling rigs to 20 by the end of the year. Our site construction, we're finishing somewhere between 8 and 10 new pad sites every month. The 3 we have aren't able to keep up. We need to add a new one. That's a good operational need to add a new contractor. Make sense? So that district manager gets approval, and our risk management department will distribute out some forms to that contractor. we're going to request OSHA logs from you. If you don't know what an OSHA log is, it's going to be very difficult for you to get an MSA with us, or frankly with many people in the industry. How many people are familiar with a service called IS Networld? Okay, I mean, just looking here, probably only about 7, 8, certainly less than 10 hands just got raised. This is not one of our companies, but it's a service we use. I know many other people in the industry use it. That fencing contractor is going to tell me I'm the safest operator. I never have injuries. Believe me, we're the safest company. Not only are we the best fencing contractor, we're the safest contractor in Ohio too. Again, we deal with so many vendors, we just can't take it. We don't have the time to research all that. So we utilize a third-party service called IS Networld. If you work in the construction industry, if you work in the contract industry, if you envision that you are going to want to engage some of the larger E&P companies, and I would imagine some of the oil field service companies as well, you need to familiarize yourself with this service. I'm not telling you to go out and buy it. I don't own stock in this company, in IS Networld. I can't tell you to do that. But I do want you to get familiar with it. There's a cost to a contract. That fencing contractor might have 20 employees, and it might cost him $1,000 to $1,500 a year. I don't know the exact pricing to be a member. What IS Networld does is they engage that fencing contractor, and they find out who is, well, in Ohio, workers' comp is easy, you know who the insurance carrier is there, but who is liability insurance carrier. Whatever insurances are required, they find out the very specifics, and they validate his risk exposure directly with the insurance companies on our behalf. So the contractor pays a small fee to get this IS Networld number, this IS Networld rating. Us as the company will go in and we'll validate. And they come up with what's called a TRIR score, a total reportable incident rate. Very similar to some of the terms you use. I think OSHA uses a similar term as well. But that fencing contractor probably needs to be a leader. Safety in our industry is absolutely paramount in everything that we do. We talked about that in the last slide here too. We talked about, many of the speakers before us talked about it. If your total reportable incident rate is excessive, if it's not, and each industry is a little bit different, but if you know that your score is maybe not the best, if you got some blemishes for whatever the reason, you need to be taking a look at your safety programs right now, because frankly, you might not be able to qualify. That fencing contractor does a great job, but if he's got too many injuries or safety issues, a company like Chesapeake, a company like Superior, some of these larger companies, they can't afford to risk engaging with a vendor that doesn't have really impeccable environmental health and safety standards. It is absolutely the most paramount thing. When I present a company to our operations manager or our field, the first thing they'll ask, are they an IS Networld? What's their total reportable incident rate? Do they have a full-time EHS manager on staff? If the answer to any of those questions is no, that conversation is going to end. The Chesapeake field representative is going to stop conversation with me and say, find me one that is safety conscious. Find me one that does take safety most important. Not just safety for their own personnel, but for the environment, for their coworkers too. So let's say that he belongs to IS Networld and he's got all the forms in. The EH&S department has to approve that vendor. Once they get that approval, it's going to go back to risk management. Risk management is going to then contact you. They'll distribute the MSA for you to sign. They might talk about some of the specific insurance coverages. But the insurances are very typical. I mean, most people say, what does our general liability have to be? It's very typical to the industry, probably very typical to what some industries are different than others, but it's nothing extraordinary. The biggest thing is the safety rating. Other issues I think they talked about, and I think John Van Horn is going to speak afterwards a little bit more about the MSA process from the industry. This again is specific to Chesapeake's process, but I'd be very surprised if any of the big operators in this industry aren't as safe. They need to be safety focused. We are a very highlighted, focused company in the communities that we're in. We are the stewards of our communities and the environment, and we have to act that. We have environmental health and safety meetings every single month. To be a vendor of ours, you need to be at those meetings. If you're not at those meetings, you're probably not going to get work from us about. We take it so seriously, and the expectation has to be